Hi everybody, I'm Keith Casey. I'm Director of Product for a company called Clarify. If you were at the hackathon yesterday, you heard a little bit about it. I'll mention it here, but that's not the point of today's talk. The point of today's talk is to learn 12 reasons why your API sucks. If you have to report this presentation to your boss, I have an alternate working title for you. 12 steps to successfully launching your API. I gave this presentation to a bank about 8 months ago, and I gave them this original title, and they said, no, there's no way you can use that. This is a bank. So I gave them this title and then instead used this as my second slide, just to have some fun with them. So anyway, one of these is my logo, one of these is my avatar. I'm from the great state of Texas. Anyone else from Texas? All right, thank you. I have a joke, never ask a man if he's from Texas. If he is, he'll tell you. If he's not, you'll just embarrass him. So I work for a company called Clarify. We make audio and video searchable. So we have an API that you pass us a URL to your audio or video file, and we use automatic speech recognition to find out if it's, to make it searchable. So we can find out like what is said in the file. We're Techstars London company. We moved to Austin last winter, and I joined up after that. We launched on October 1st, so we are publicly available, just Clarify.io. And I got into this a little bit because I worked for a company called Twilio. Does anyone know Twilio? Yeah, so I spent 2.5 years there working as a developer evangelist, working on the API. I lived and breathed APIs. Did it a lot. Did it every single day, all day, every day. Spent a lot of time doing that. I also previously did APIs for the federal government. So we launched what we believe to be the first web service within the federal government back in 2001. So I've done a lot with APIs. To the point where last fall I decided to start writing a book on API design because we were running the same problem so much. And so I know it's the book on API design because the URL is the API design book. So if you're looking for one book on API design, that's it. Anyway, let's get to 12 reasons why your API sucks. We're going to talk a little bit about developer experience. We're going to talk about love at first bite, what it takes to get started with an API. We'll talk about adoption of a good API, like what it takes to do it. We'll talk about the day-to-day operational stuff, and then we'll tie it all together. So first of all, what's developer experience? Has anyone heard the term developer experience? Nobody. That's awful. Developer experience is a great thing. Developer experience is what to developers as to user experience is to users. When we're designing an experience for users, what do? What are some things that we do to give somebody a great user experience? Come on. Make it easy. All right. Yeah. Use standards. What else? Document. How about wireframes? How about we trim away all the crap? We try and make it as simple and straightforward as possible. How about the fact that we model things and we make sure that these things make sense together and that they fit together and they're logical? Who does any of that for their API? Yeah. Oh, I get one sort of That's it. I'd suggest you're doing it wrong. I'd suggest that if we go ahead and we apply some principles from user experience development, user experience training to API development and API training, I think it would make a lot of sense. And there's a great book called Don't Make Me Think. Oops, wrong button. It's a great book called Don't Make Me Think. That's what I get for using my left hand instead of my right hand. Has anyone read Don't Make Me Think? 2. Everyone should read it. It's this book on web usability. It's written in the early 2000s, and so it sort of predates a lot of the stuff out there. It's a fantastic read on here's how to make the web usable for people. It talks about some web design principles like button size and button placement, so we can discard that for API design. But it talks about breadcrumbs. It talks about logical user flows. It talks about understanding your user's goals while you're using the system. So a lot of the things that it talks about when we're talking about web usability in general can apply to API usability. That's why I think web usability is such an important thing. Because developers are users too. Developers are human, believe it or not, and we are trying to solve problems. That's all we're trying to do. And this comes about because I think when somebody just finds a new tool, they bookmark it and they save it for later, to look at it later. When does later come? Never. It comes days and weeks later, if it happens at all, right? And what happens? You set aside an hour to play with something, and there's interruptions. There's constant interruptions. There's email, there's phone calls, there's people knocking on your door, there's interruptions. So that hour that you set aside is no longer an hour. It's 3 10-minute chunks. Now, when you stop and you think back about that hour, you don't stop and think, well, I really only had 30 productive minutes and 3 10-minute chunks. You think, oh, well, I set aside an hour, and here's how far I got with the API. And the vast majority of the time, you don't get very far with an API in 10 minutes. So coming from the background of Twilio, like that was our goal, 5 minutes to joy, 5 minutes to success. Clarify our goal is 10 minutes to success. Because we're indexing audio and video, it takes a little bit more effort than sending a text message, just a little bit more effort. So we want to be able to make somebody productive in 10 minutes or less. Because that's the experience that you remember. You don't remember, oh yeah, well I got interrupted 6 times. You remember, I set aside an hour, I set aside an afternoon, and I tried to get something done, and here's it either worked or it didn't work. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the time, it doesn't work. Who actually builds APIs here? Anybody? Oh, good number of people, fantastic. How long does it take to get started with your API? Minutes, hours, days? Anybody? Depends on the user, okay. That's a good answer. So you need to decide what user you're targeting. Are you targeting the newbie developer who's just getting started, or are you targeting somebody more experienced? So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the first reason of 12 reasons your API sucks. First reason your API sucks is your documentation sucks. So there are lots of ways to deliver documentations. If you're delivering documentation with PDF, stop it. You're doing it wrong. What's wrong with a PDF documentation? Anybody? Can't what? Can't update it. It's not easy to search, is it? It's not very search engine friendly. You can search within the document, but searching from outside the document, it's impossible to find what you're looking for. What else? How about it's guaranteed to always be out of date? When you download it on Monday and you go to play with the API on Tuesday, it's guaranteed to be out of date. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's different, but it's a snapshot of what you had days ago, or weeks ago, or even months ago. This is the kind of thing that really messes people up. So when I initially started writing this presentation, I tweeted, could you guys send me links to bad documentation? That was a terrible thing to do. My email, or my Twitter feed was just blowing up for like 6 days later. Like, it was ridiculous how many people had bad examples out there. And it's funny because I knew a lot of people on different teams, and so I'd like send them like references to their own stuff saying, hey look, 10 people just said your API sucks. You might want to look into that. But my favorite instance was somebody DM me and they said, hey look, we've got some great documentation. You're welcome to look at it if you sign this NDA. What's wrong with that? Okay, let's serious poll question here for a second. Who's authorized to sign contracts on behalf of your company? That's more than I've ever seen in a given room. And that's what an NDA is, right? It's a contract on behalf of either you personally or your company. So now, in order to get the documentation to this API that I was considering using, I have to go to my boss, who probably has to go to the corporate attorney, probably has to go to somebody and get approval to sign an NDA so I can look at the docs to see if I want to use this API. That's messed up. That's fundamentally messed up. This one little excursion to say, can I use this API, might cost hundreds of dollars. And remember, we haven't written any code yet. We don't even have, we don't know what code we need to write because we haven't seen the docs yet. That's pretty messed up. Now, there are good examples of HTML out there. Twilio is a great example. I think they don't go far enough. I think there's a fundamental weakness in sort of like the static HTML documentation. So I tell people, let's get interactive as much as possible. Has anyone played with Swagger? All right. Swagger's awesome, isn't it? Swagger is a JSON specification saying, here's how to interact with my API. And you take it, you run it through a simple tool, and it makes an interactive documentation page, where then you can go ahead and you can fill in parameters, and if you set it up properly, it will make live API requests for you. So you can actually see, what does this API do? What data does it return? How much code do you need to write to be able to use a Swagger documentation page? None. That's the fastest anyone will ever get to be able to use your API. If they have to write 0 lines of code, that's fantastic. That's what you want. You want people to be able to explore your APIs quickly and as easily, as painless as possible. Swagger is just one of the standards out there. IODocs is another. They work out to essentially the same thing. IODocs is maintained by Mashery. Swagger is an open specification. So just a toss-up on which one you want to do. Number 2, you might have incomplete or wrong documentation. Whose documentation is wrong? Come on, let's be honest. There's a good number of people here. Stop it. Update your documentation. Make sure it's correct. Even worse, I was working with a company earlier this year where I was helping them sketch out their documentation and I was helping them choose what languages to write in and everything. And I said, hey, look, you've got this great Ruby gem. And it works, and it's beautiful, and it's fantastic. but what about documentation for the API itself? And they said, oh, no, we only want to focus on Ruby developers. I'm like, well, you're an API. Like, why are you focused only on Ruby developers? And they're like, well, those are the people that understand it. Who's a Ruby developer in the room? Okay, look around the room. I see one sort of Everyone else is excluded from using their API. Just because they made the decision of everyone else is not good enough to use our API. Documentation for a helper library is not the same as documentation for the API. At Clarify, we made sure that our documentation was available using raw curl, so you can go ahead and you can work on the command line if you want to. We've got documentation just agnostic of any language, any technology, and we've got PHP and Python too. So we want to make sure, look, this is going to be available to as many people as possible. Like, that's what we started with. Now, one of the problems with that is every language that you release it in, you have to maintain. So you need to keep that in mind of once you've sort of released that, you need to keep it up to date. You have to absolutely maintain it. And if you don't have those skills in-house, that can be challenging. Number 3, getting started code. This is another Twilio example. Fundamentally, it's about 2 lines to get started. This is fantastic. What's the likelihood of a copy-paste error when you have 2 lines of code? Pretty low, right? I'm sorry? Yeah, at least 1 according to statistics. The likelihood is pretty low though, right? It's pretty easy to copy and paste code and make use of it. That's a good thing. That's a fantastic thing. Odds are your API doesn't have code samples. We used to refer to things as copy, paste, execute. If you can get things down to the point where it's copy, paste, execute, you win. People have the ability to use your code without having to write any code, but being able to work in the language of their choice, being able to explore things the way they want. The flip side is too much boilerplate, and I tried to get a sample from PayPal in here, but I didn't have enough slides. Their boilerplate is 200 lines long. That's just the boilerplate. That's what it takes to get started. So when you have a choice between an API that gets started in, say, 2, 5, 10 lines of code, or one that gets started in 200 lines of code, which one are we going to choose? Also, what's the likelihood of having an error when you are copying and pasting 200 lines of code? A little higher than 2? Number 5 reason your API sucks is SOAP. So, is anyone still doing SOAP? I'm sorry if you are, for multiple reasons. Yeah, I'm sorry. So the way I always look at it is SOAP is like getting a mortgage. There's a lot of documentation up front. There's a very well-defined scripted process throughout. There's a lot of documentation on the back end. There's processes for laying things out, like if anything goes wrong, whatever. So it's a very regimented, very clear process, which is great for a lot of applications. REST is like borrowing 10 bucks from your buddy for lunch. If I come up to you and say, hey, can I borrow 10 bucks for lunch? No. See, he's smart. He says no. But your buddy might say yes. And then it's up to you to negotiate with your friend how to pay them back. There's not a regimented process. You might pay them back $10 tomorrow. You might buy them lunch. You might buy them beers at the bar. Whatever. There's a lot of flexibility and ambiguity that comes into play, which is a good thing, because that flexibility gives us multiple ways to solve the exact same problem. The ambiguity is the downside, because now we have a lot of ways of solving the exact same problem. We need to make sure that we've thought things out, that they're logical and consistent. And we'll get to more of that later. So adoption, day-to-day adoption. So this is what it takes to actually use the API. So the first reason your API sucks in this section is probably it's illogical or inconsistent. So this is an actual API that I wrote the helper library for. It's actually a great API. I'm not going to share the name because I make fun of them throughout. So we've got the accounts resource, and it's API v1 accounts. The contacts resource is API v1 contacts. So let's skip down users resource. What should the users resource look like? API v1 users. It should look like that, right? Nope. Okay, well, don't worry. We've got another one. Contact histories, compound word. So we've got API v1 contact underscore histories. So what should it look like? API v1 contact slash groupings. Well, that's a good idea. So it might look like this. Nope, it actually looks like this. Odds are there are little things in your API that don't make sense. They're inconsistent, they're illogical, they need to be fixed. I would say fix them. And even better, if you can go a step further, tell people, or stop documenting the old bad way and start documenting the new way. Encourage people to use the new way of doing things. Another place, this is the same API. When you create an account, you get back a 201 response code. What's 201 response code mean? Anybody? Oh, 201 is created. It means something was successfully created. So when we try to create an account, we get back a 201 saying it was successfully created. Makes sense, right? And we get back a location header pointing at that resource. When we do a contact history, we get back the same thing. When we create a new user, even though we have to create that weird URL, we still get back the same thing. Groupings is the same thing. Contacts, though, we don't get back a 201. We get back a 200. Which means either we created it successfully or we updated it successfully. We don't know which. That's a huge problem. Because what if you're trying to synchronize records with an API? And now you say, hey, go create this record, and it says, hey, look, there's one here. Well, was there one here before I did that or after I did that? The API doesn't tell us. That's a problem. Odds are you've got some inconsistencies in your API that show that sort of thing. Number 7, poor workflow. Does anyone actually, that has an API, have you modeled your workflows? Anybody? So I say modeling workflows is the exact same thing that you do for user experience. You want to take the common use cases that you're trying to solve for your user and see if you can solve them with your API. So a simple CRUD API is not a modeled workflow. It's just a starting point. It's a way to be able to have the basics of an API without being able to sort of take it a step further. And the concept I throw out there is called affordances. And you need to understand, what is the API producer's goal? What are they trying to do? What do they want you to accomplish? The second one is, what do they make easy to accomplish? And the third one is, what do you want to do? If those three are not in alignment, you have problems. Because they may do something, and they may want you to do something. They may make that incredibly easy. But if that's not what you want to do, what's the point? They've spent a lot of time engineering something that nobody wants to do. And that's a problem. So for that, I talk about coffee cups. What's the point of a handle for a coffee cup? What? To hold on to it. Why do we want to use a handle instead of just holding the cup? Because it's hot. So when they designed the coffee handle, they probably had in mind that you'd hold it by the handle. Is that the easy thing to do? I'd say that's pretty easy. A couple of people say, no, it's not easy. I'm sorry. Most of the time, it's really easy to hold some coffee cup by the handle. Can you use the handle for other things? You can hang it on the wall by the handle. So that's a scenario where we've taken something and we said, look, here's what they designed it to do, which is also what they made easy. But at the same time, they're not preventing us from doing other things. The thing we want to do is taken care of in addition to other things. That's a good interface design. We should think of our APIs the exact same way. What do we want them to do? What do we make easy? And what does the user actually want to accomplish? If those three things are out of alignment, we have problems. Number 8, numerous approaches. All right, so I'll come clean here. I am a PHP guy. So haters gotta hate. Thank you, I appreciate it. We've got a few friends. Power to the people. We've got a few friends here, but PHP, the sort of thing that's been going around is that it's a fractal of bad design, right? It's bad designs all the way down. So there's a strength and there's a weakness to that. The strength is there's 600 ways to accomplish everything. So odds are, no matter what your background is, you'll come up with a solution. The bad thing is there's 600 ways to accomplish everything. And no matter what your background is, you'll come up with a solution. And that solution is probably going to suck. But we run into what I call the Stack Overflow problem. Everyone's used Stack Overflow, right? I gave this presentation a week ago and no one had heard of Stack Overflow. I was like, what? Like where do you learn stuff? So Stack Overflow is, you come to the site and you submit a question. You say, hey, I'm trying to do A. I'm taking approach X. Can somebody help me? And what's the first answer inevitably? Why are you doing X? Why are you doing X? That's a stupid thing. You should do it like Y. And what's the next answer almost inevitably? Why are you trying to do X and Y? You should do it like Z. Everyone's experienced this, right? Linux forums are the same way. Lots of forums. The Rails forum says, why are you trying to do A? So that's a whole other thing. But the point is that when you have 600 ways of accomplishing the same thing, everyone's going to be right and everyone's going to be wrong. The best debate I ever saw was on Stack Overflow, where somebody said, I'm trying to do this with an API. I found this page in their documentation. What do I do? And somebody said, I'm paraphrasing here, you're an idiot. Here's this page of their documentation that says how to do that. And the next person said, you're an idiot. Here's another page of the documentation that says both those things are wrong. That's messed up. Now, think of it from the API producer's point of view. They had to write all those ways of accomplishing things, and then after writing them, they had to support documentation to do each of those things. And from there, now you've got their own audience arguing against themselves, saying, hey, how do you do this thing? That's a problem. When your own users are citing your documentation to prove each other wrong, that's messed up. I'm sorry. If you have scenarios where you've got 600 ways, or you even have 5 ways of accomplishing the same thing, you need to fix that. You need to decide what is the one true way. What is the way of doing things? And if you don't have one very deliberate, very clear way of doing things, I'd suggest you need to stop and go back to the drawing board. Because you're not doing it right. Just to throw a bone to the Rails people, Rails is fantastic at this. There is one way of doing things. And if you don't follow it, like DHH shows up and excommunicates you. It's ridiculous. But that's a huge strength in that community. It's something that in the PHP community I wish we had sometimes. Other times I get my senses straight and don't wish that. Number 9, odds are at some point you've rolled your own authentication. Who's rolled their own? Admit it. Yeah, stop that. Okay? Just stop it. Unless you're a crypto expert. Do we have any crypto experts in the audience? Like, one. One. Okay, cool. All right, that's fantastic. Unless you're a crypto expert, don't roll your own. There are lots of standards, there's lots of... I'm sorry? Even they don't. Even crypto experts don't. Why is that? Because it's stupid to do so. He said that, I just repeated him. But it's the sort of thing where if you're trying to roll your own encryption, you roll your own authentication, you're going to do it wrong. There are lots of people, tons of people, who've spent a lot more time thinking about it than you have. And if they can't do it right, and they haven't proven, like, here's the best scenarios, like, there's no way you're going to get there. Use a standard. Use a specification. There's also a flip side to this. If you use something that's non-standard, all these helper libraries out there, all these gems, all these, supporting libraries, you're killing off all of them. People can't use them to use your API. You're just giving them extra things to do to use your API, and that's the last thing you want. You want people to adopt your API as quickly and as painlessly as possible. Finally, day-to-day. So this is the last few points. Odds are your stuff is broken. Who has, so I was working with a DirecTV API recently, and they were boasting that their uptime was 99%. What's the outage time per week for that? Anyone know off the top of their head? Sorry? It's 1.68 hours a week of downtime. And they're proud of that. What's the downtime for any of your APIs? Anyone? Anyone know? Uptime, downtime, either? If you don't know that, I'd suggest that you need to stop what you're doing and go figure that out. There's no way somebody can base a business on your API if it's down, if it's broken, if it's messed up, if there's something wrong with it. If you're trying to build an API company, or even just open an API up to partners that are going to be making money off of it, you need to stop and reconsider that and figure out how things work. We run into a problem specifically if our API is deterministic. Does anyone know what deterministic is? The crypto guy. Behaves exactly the same at every point. That's a pretty good definition. So we run into a problem though because we do automatic speech recognition and we use machine learning. So our algorithms are changing. They're getting better over time. So somebody could submit a file to us on Monday, come up with one set of results. And if they submit to us on the following Monday, after our algorithm has changed, they might get a different set of results. How fun is that to program against? Where I give you the exact same input over and over again, and you might give me different output each time. That's a pain. That's really hard to do. That's really hard to work against. It's really hard to figure that thing out. And I admit that we have not figured this one out. We don't know what to do with it because we want to offer bigger and better data each time. But at the same time, if people are getting back different results, that can be really confusing really quickly. So we're trying to figure out the best approach for that. But odds are, if your API is not returning back the same or at least consistent results each time, you're going to run into problems. Number 11, error messages. What's wrong with this error message? It's ambiguous. 404 means what? Not found. And we just say there's an error. So what's wrong with this one? Why is there an error on a 200? So was there an error or was there not an error? We don't know. This was an actual error message I captured from an API. And they even gave that error code. What's that error code mean? Anybody? What? Where's the documentation? Okay, well let's take that error code. And what's the first thing we do when we hit an error in development? Copy, paste, Google, right? So do you think the number 11,007 has ever shown up in Nature before? I'd wager it has. I'd wager we're not going to find anything useful whatsoever. Even if we put in 11,007 in the name of the API, we might not come up with something useful. So I think we can all agree this is a much better solution. We still have this weird error code that we're not sure what to do with. But at least now it's consistent. The message isn't lying to us. This is a fun example I came up with. These are actual error codes, and these are actual responses you get. What do you think of the first one? What's wrong with it? Nothing? Is it perfect? So we got an exception, a no auth exception. It said things don't exist, but we got back a 200. Sorry? You could do a 401 potentially. Maybe you logged in though. It doesn't say we didn't log in. So maybe it is a 200. I don't know. Facebook is kind of a pain here. They don't tell us what actually happened. And that's a huge problem. I was talking with the Facebook API team at the end of last year. And they said, hey, in 2014, we're only going to break the API 4 times. What's wrong with that statement? I'm sorry? It's more than 0, so they're breaking the API in the first place. What's the other thing wrong with that statement? Well, how do they know? But there's another thing wrong with this statement. They said, we're only going to break it 4 times. Which means that in previous years, they've broken it more than 4 times. I guess when you have 1.5 billion users, you can do what you want. Let's see, here's another error code from Simple Geo. And this is an actual error code, so we've got a 401, not authenticated, or authentication required, and the message itself is authentication required. That works, that makes sense, that's consistent. It's not confusing like the Facebook one is, but it's not particularly helpful either. But at least it's not lying to us. And we've got the Twilio example, and I'll be really honest with you, for Clarify, we copied Twilio completely on this, because they're doing it right in a lot of ways. So, they're trying to authenticate, we get back a 401, and what's the message here? Anybody? Authenticate. So it's pretty clear what we want to do with it. Then they give us an error code, the 20,003. What do we do with that? What? Google it. I think the number 20,003 has shown up somewhere in Nature before, so we'll definitely find some results. Well, what's a better solution? Click this link that says more info. This is a fantastic error message. If you're going to give your users error messages, give them enough information to fix it. Give them enough information to know what the next step is. And we've copied this wholesale because we think it's a great idea. And so when you run into an error with the Clarify API, we go ahead and we give you a link directly in the documentation to that place. Because we want you to fix that as quickly as possible. Let's be really blunt. How long does it take for our links are out of date? Well, we have control over the API and over the documentation, so we should keep them in sync. If we don't keep them in sync, we've got problems. But let me be real blunt with you for a second. We only get paid if you successfully use the API. It's in our best interest to help you successfully use the API. If your partners are getting paid based on them using your API, make it as easy as possible for them to use your API. And the final thing is logging and debugging. Does anyone do any sort of logging and debugging in your API that you show to the users? 1, 2, 3. Fantastic. That's more than I've ever seen before. 3. So there's a great thing called RunScope. Has anyone played with RunScope? RunScope is fantastic. It sits as a proxy between you and the other API, and it captures everything that goes back and forth. That means all the requests, all the response, all the headers, all the fields, everything, everything. And the nice thing is, you've got a response playback URL. So if you're like waiting for a callback, you can go ahead and capture that callback and then replay it over and over again to make sure that it comes back correctly. My favorite thing though is start comparison. So you can record a set of requests and responses and then set them over to the side, record another set of requests and responses and do a diff between them. This is how we launched our API. When we went from beta into production, we had in beta, we turned on RunScope, we ran all of our tests, we upgraded the API, upgraded everything, got everything good to go, and then we ran through all the tests again. We did a diff between the results, between the requests and results. And the only thing that changed was the date field, which is what we were expecting to change. Everything else worked out fine. So definitely have some sort of tool to give your users a fighting chance on what's going on. Capture those errors, document them, attach them to something. When we put it all together, we end up with documentation that's consumable, that's hopefully accurate and complete, that has samples. Code samples are fantastic. That there's some simplicity in the code in the interfaces itself. If we're providing hundreds of lines of boilerplate code to get started, we're doing it wrong. From there, hopefully, when we're adopting the API, it's logical and consistent, that we've actually stopped and worked through real workflows. That we're not sort of just modeling a CRUD API and saying, here, go at it. Hopefully there's one true way of accomplishing things. We've got consistent payloads. Please don't roll your own authentication. There's no point, there's no need to. And finally, on the supporting side of things, we've got error messages and error handling that's useful, that's actionable. The more information you can give your users when they hit an error, the better off they are. And then finally, logging and debugging. So with that, that's 12 reasons why your API sucks. Thank you.